Good afternoon to you. Mark Suttoth, HurricaneTrack.com, here with your first Hurricane Pro and HD video discussion for the 2017, won't call it hurricane season yet, but this is sort of a preliminary, an intro as to what we're going to be doing once again this year for the East Pacific and the Atlantic Basin hurricane seasons. Of course, the Eastern Pacific season does not begin officially on a calendar until May 15th, but don't let that stop nature, right? We have a couple of areas to talk about already. Here it is, only Monday, May the 8th, about a week ahead of time, and it looks like we might get some development out of this system here, which is officially designated as Invest Area 90E for Eastern Pacific. They use the numbering system 90 through 99 to sort of set these up as areas of interest to allocate more resources, satellite floater images, computer models specifically designated to track these systems, and so forth. And the way to do that is to have a conventional naming system that uses, in this case, numbers, 90 through 99, and in the Eastern Pacific, the letter E. In the Atlantic, we use the letter L. Actually, in the Pacific, it's technically, I think, EP, and in the Atlantic, it's AL, but us weather geeks just use the E's and the L's. So there you have it. So this system down here, 90E, high chance of development, and you can see that it's situated just off of the coast of Central America down here, and the forecast for the development area, so to speak, it's sort of window of opportunity off to the northwest. So right now it does not look like a direct threat to Central America just yet. However, obviously folks down here in southeast Mexico, or I guess you'd call that southeast Mexico. If this is north and this is south, then I guess southern Mexico, right? You get the idea. Here's Guatemala, and we have Costa Rica and Panama, and this is going to move away from Costa Rica, Panama, and the Guatemala, El Salvador area. And again, I think this is more of a concern for you folks up here in southern Pacific Mexico. This little feature right here, don't worry about it too much. Probably not going to develop. Now, this time of year, we typically don't get development in the Eastern Pacific, and this is the National Hurricane Center first 10 days of May, points of origin from 1851 through 2015. And in fact, the only two areas during this 10-day time period were in the Atlantic Basin and the Caribbean Sea. And it's hard to make it out, but these are the tracks that those systems took back then when they did develop. So clearly, this time of year, we usually don't see, in fact, we never have, had development prior to May the 15th. I believe, or maybe the 11th or so, the 14th. It's rare. Okay, that's what I'm getting at. Sorry, getting ahead of myself. Because the next map, the 11th through the 20th, and I believe, the first development was the 14th of May. And of course, this next window here includes this window of development time, 11th through the 20th. A few of them in the Southeast Pacific, with a few more systems in the Atlantic as we get closer to that June 1st date. So why isn't hurricane season basically May 1st or May 15th through late November for both basins? Well, I still don't have the answer to that. Maybe it would make sense if we keep getting this early development, but that's a story for another day. Point is, it's pretty rare to have development this early in the Eastern Pacific, and we very well may have something. So this is what it looks like on the visible satellite loop today. Clearly, you can see the counterclockwise rotation down here. This is the coast of Central America, Pacific side, and again, the system moving off to the northwest with time, slowly getting better organized. After all, it is only the first 10 days of May here, so it's not like we're at the peak and best times of the hurricane season in the Pacific. So this is going to be slow to develop, but the models are in general agreement that this will go on to develop, and you never know, it could even become a hurricane. This is an area of the Pacific that is usually very favorable once things set up. In other words, once they become favorable, they tend to stay favorable throughout the season for the most part. So we'll keep an eye on it, a little wider shot of where this system is located. Again, just to get your bearings on what's what, this would be the southern Pacific coast of Mexico here. You have Guatemala, El Salvador, Nicaragua, Honduras over here. And so this should move along northwest towards maybe this region over the next week or so. Going to be a slow mover. I don't see any threat directly to areas south and east of Mexico proper. All right, so that's good news for those areas. We'll keep an eye on it, and I'll be talking about it again tomorrow. These updates are going to be once a week when there's really no threats to land, but when we do have something like we do now, then these updates will be posted in Hurricane Pro and Hurricane HD on a daily basis, usually in the afternoon, so be sure to check that. Just a little tip for you. So in the Atlantic and the Pacific as well, one of the things I like to watch are the anomalies, the departures from normal or average sea surface temperatures. And this updated today, and I think there's a couple of things that should stand out. First of all, look how very warm compared to normal the main development region out here is. Quite a lot warmer than a lot of folks were anticipating, and the trade winds have been fairly slow out here. A good way to kind of think of this map, this graphic, if it's blue, obviously those are colder anomalies like you see here, down here, and up in the northern Pacific, for example. Typically this is because those seas are roughed up. Okay, there's a lot of wind and a lot of mixing of the ocean surface in these areas with storm systems and just strong persistent winds keeping things churned up, like blowing across a large cup of coffee. You try to cool off the surface so it doesn't burn you when you drink it. That's the same kind of thing that we have here. And the opposite is true in these areas of warmth. Typically, the trade winds are much slower across these regions, and so it's like your pool in the backyard. If there's no wind, the pool heats up rather efficiently, and that's what we see going on in the Atlantic. In the meantime, the Pacific here along the equatorial region, a lot of the models and a lot of people were talking about that we'd be going into an El Nino, and while that still might happen, I think it's going to be much later in the year, towards the fall and winter, and more than likely much weaker than folks were first thinking. And this map shows a few little areas. They're tiny, but there's a few little areas of below normal anomalies showing up. And these are not large, but this is a huge difference in what was anticipated by now just a few months ago. All right, so back in January, February, a lot of folks were thinking that we were going to see a lot more darker reds through here, this sort of positive anomaly showing up, and that is definitely not the case. So this should set up for a fairly busy Atlantic hurricane season again, like we had last year. It was fairly busy, and it's just around the corner, so this stuff's going to really matter. And that brings me to my next point here. It is National Hurricane Preparedness Week, and before I sign off for today, I wanted to point you to this. You go to the National Hurricane Center's website at nhc.noaa.gov, or just hurricanes with an s.gov, hurricanes.gov. Scroll down, and it's too bad they didn't put it like up at the top, because I think it's a big deal. But anyway, there it is, the 2017 Hurricane Preparedness Week, and all kinds of information, especially if you're new to a region that experiences the effects of tropical storms and hurricanes. You want to visit this page. It has a daily sort of infographic and thought process as to what to do to be prepared. Going through Saturday, May the 13th, there are different websites for tracking and information, forecast, and then these videos, which I really like. These are very helpful, and they're put together in a very easy to understand manner right here. And then, of course, you can follow the Hurricane Center and their different operational products from the different divisions on Twitter and other social media. So check it out. Go to the Hurricane Center's website and learn what you need to learn, all right? The best thing to do is to be at least educated about what to expect, and hopefully, depending on your financial situation, because, preparedness, the way we really want it to be, can be expensive, depending on where you live and what your situation is. But, at the very least, find out what your vulnerabilities are, whether or not you're in an evacuation zone, and what you're going to do from there. That can really help in the future. And I'm not just saying that, I know from experience, all right? So again, these updates will be at least once a week, but when there's an active system threatening land especially, or something that a lot of people are talking about, even if it's way out in the Atlantic when that season kicks in, or in the Pacific, these will be more frequently, probably every day. So, hey, luck has swung in your favor, I guess, if you enjoy and learn something from these videos, because we're going to be here every day until that area in the Eastern Pacific dissipates. All right, so we're going to start off with both feet jumping first into the water this year. Have a great rest of your Monday afternoon. As always, I appreciate you tuning in, as do the folks from Hurricane Pro and HD. Remember, you have some powerful features in those apps, whether you're using it on your iPhone or your iPad. There's a lot to take advantage of, so be sure to do that. All right, again, have a great rest of your day. I am Mark Sudduth for HurricaneTrack.com. That's my website. Always an honor to be able to contribute these videos to Hurricane Pro and HD. And with that being said, I'll be back with more for you tomorrow.